Hi, thanks for watching. Let's look at Xingyi's Pichuan, or chopping fist or splitting fist. This is the first of the 5 fundamental techniques, sets the foundation, the training for everything else in Xingyi. I want to look at the power generation with this technique, and we'll look at 3 that are quite clear, obvious ones, and then the 4th one, which is a little less clear, so we can call it hidden. This is over and above the stepping drill and figuring out the stepping, and so we're just looking at the Pichuan techniques themselves. So the Pichuan, the split, is one coming from Santi, pull down. First part, there's 2 parts to the split. There's the drill up, and then there's the split itself. With this first part, which is this uppercut strike, this is the setup, the preparation for the split. There's a couple things that are important to have clear with this first part of the move. Otherwise, you'll run into difficulty generating the power with the second half. And really, it's 2 main things. This first advance can be seen as either an uppercut, so a striking upwards here, or moving in and connecting with the person, so jamming the person, forcing them backwards with this bracing action of the forearm. It works either way. In either case, what is important is 2 things. One is to be set down into the leg. It's very easy to come into here and be on the leg, which is this posture, as opposed to in the leg. So set the weight down into the heel, lower the center of gravity. This is the first part. This is important because if you're on top of the leg, you won't be able to launch from this position to come through for the second half. For the launching to happen effectively, you need to be set down in the leg. So then as the weight starts to go forward with the momentum, then you can apply the push through the leg that ends up being part of the power generation for the split. The second half is that as you drill up with this posture, you want to set the body down. So there is not only a setting down into the leg, but there's a settling of the spine so that this force on the fist is set down into the abdomen, into the torso. And again, this sets us up for another aspect of the power generation with the actual technique itself. So for the setup, the 2 important things is to set into the leg, relax the hip, so that you can have the foot ready to generate power pushing forward. Second is that you want to be set down into the body here, so that when you come through with the split, there is a lengthening of the spine. Having had the proper setup with the first upward drill, then we can look at the chop itself. For the power generation, the 3 parts that are obvious is that you're striking with the power coming from the leg, from the spine, and from the shoulders. First part, we already hinted at the first 2, because most of the power of the chop comes from here, launching from the leg, having the whole body move straight into the opponent. So you're striking, of course, using full body power. This is the distinctive aspect of Xingyi. And so the reason for having the hands at a short distance with the arms close to the body, close to the ribs, is so that everything is connected and functioning as a single unit that strikes forward. So the movement of the leg and the power generated by the push means that you're striking with power generated from the heel and the leg. The second source of the power generation is striking from the spine. This is a smaller movement, but this is a movement that happens by, with the proper setup being set down here, then there's a small lengthening of the spine that sends the force of the hand down. So what you can say is the first half, as the fist and the strike goes up, the body sets down. And for the chop or the split, the hand shoves down and the body comes up. Coming up is a lengthening of the spine, not so much a lifting of the center of gravity. So there's an important distinction to be made there. So striking with the leg, striking with the spine. Third is a striking from the shoulders. There's a movement that happens with the split, which is one shoulder goes back as the other shoulder goes forward. So this kind of motion here happens because the shoulders, having established a nice upright vertical axis, can move one shoulder going back, driving the other striking shoulder forward. So these three components form the most important parts of the integrated power or the full body power that is expressed with this chop. It's important to do a side note, which is, of course, this is not a chop like this, right? We're not doing this kind of motion. The reason it's called chop is because it has this downward direction to the strike. And the downward direction is facilitated by this lengthening of the spine. And then the fourth part of the power generation, which is not so easy to see and not so easy, or it's easy to overlook is what I should say, and that's a rotation that happens through the wrist and forearm. So really what ends up happening is a strike that's happening through this area of the fist. The hand comes up in this position here onto the upper torso of your opponent, and then the strike comes forward and down, striking with this area of the palm there. This is related to Xingyi's relationship to the spear. As some of you may already know, Xingyi is based off movements of the spear. The spear is a weapon that, not a javelin, so you're not throwing this at your opponent. The main motion of the spear is a forward and back motion, striking out and then coming back. But because it's the Chinese spear, what is happening with it is that there's a rotation that happens as it rotates out for the strike and then coils back in. This is what makes it a particularly fearsome weapon, but also one that is extremely difficult to practice and train. But the rotation is one of the key characteristics of the Chinese spear, and it is also a key characteristic of something like the Xingyi Pichuan or strike. So that we come up, there's this coiling that happens here, and then there's an uncoiling that happens there. These are the four sources of power generation for this strike. First one, striking with the whole body, pushing from the leg. So striking from the leg. Right. Also striking from the extension of the spine. Third, striking from the shoulder. And lastly, striking with a rotation through the wrist. So I hope that information is helpful for you. Keep training, keep practicing, and take care.